Hello there and welcome to Luminar NEO All Sliders Explained, the show where we describe and explain you every single slider in this powerful photo editing application. Now, if you've never been here before, my name is Jakub and I'm a creator and founder of Clever Photographer. Now, before we're going to start, I have a few things I want to cover. First of all, at the end of the video, we're going to give you our own and very popular Luminar NEO shortcut cheat sheet. So stay until the end so you can get your own copy. The second, if you want to follow us along, make sure you head into the description, follow the link there and get your sample files before we're going to start. If you don't own Luminar NEO, you can also follow the link in the description and use our own discount code Clever Photographer. That way you get additional 20% off and you can get your own copy. And finally, we want to ask you to like and comment on our videos and also follow our channel so we can keep creating content like this. In today's video tutorial, we're going to be looking at the different ways of how you can export your images from Luminar NEO. Now, as you work with digital images, at some point you will need to save them to your computer. It may be in progress save to capture work to date as you edit a photo. Perhaps it's to prepare a file for printing or sharing on the internet, or maybe export for social media. Luminar NEO offers many different options for saving and exporting images to meet your needs. Today's tutorial is going to have 3 parts. In the first part, I'm going to show you where and how to export your images. In the second part, we're going to cover all the different formats you can use when it comes to exporting. And finally, in the last part, I'm going to show you a few examples of how to export your images for different purposes like printing, web, or social media. So let's get on with it. So once again, we are here in Luminar NEO and we are in the catalog module. We have the sample file ready here, and if you want to follow me along and use it as well, all you need to do is to jump in the description, follow the link there, and that will bring you to our Dropbox account. From there, you can download the file and do the edit on your own computer. Now, the file we're using today is a raw file, and when I go down here in the catalog module and click on the little eye icon, I can see all the different details, knowing that it's a DNG file and it's a raw file. So we can jump out of that, and let's talk about how to access the export option. Now, when it comes to exporting image, there are multiple different ways of how you can do that in Luminar NEO. So I'm going to show you 3 of them. First of all, there is the little export icon in the corner of the screen. And when you click on that, you will get multiple different options. One of them is a disk, and when you click on that, it will open the export window. So that's the first way to access it. So we cancel it, and let's have a look at the second way. The second way is to right-click on the image and click on export. So again, when I click on that, you see that you get the same window. And finally, there is a shortcut you can use, and the shortcut is simply Shift, Command, or Control-E. And the same shortcut again opens the same window. So these are the 3 different ways of how you can export your image. And to be honest, you can use them in each of the modules. So you can go into the presets, and similarly from here, you have access to the icon. You can right click on the image and use the export, or you can use the shortcut, again, Shift, Command, E. And just to prove the point, when we go into the edit module, the icon is still in the corner of our screen. You can once again right click on the image, and we can use the Shift Command E or Shift Control E from here too. For now, let's go back to our catalog module and let's have a look at one more thing. When we export one single image by using the export option, the export window looks like this. You can adjust the name of the file, you can add tags to it, and then you can also choose where you're going to save it. After that, there is a section with the different options, and we will cover that in a moment. Now let's cancel this, and let's select multiple files. So you can do that by holding Command or Control on your keyboard. And after this, again, right-click on the image and click on Export. By doing that, you can see that the export window looks differently. It looks like a usual Explorer. Now to access the details, what you need to do is to click on the Options button, and you get a similar section as you saw a little bit earlier. Here you can again adjust the different format of the file and so on. So the difference between exporting single image and multiple images is that when you're exporting multiple images, You can change the name of the files, so they will remain the same as when you import them, and you can add any tags to them. In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at the single image export. However, I still thought that it's important for you to see it and know the difference between exporting single or multiple images. So let's jump out of this, let's click on cancel, let's make sure that we select just the one single photo, and now we can right click on it, click on export, and start to go through all the different options here. Initially, the export window can look a little bit intimidating. However, I will do my best to make sure that you understand every single option here. Starting from the top, we have the option called Save As, and it's here where you can adjust the name of the file. You can call it anything you want, and we're gonna use simple test. The second option, it's called Tags. Here you can add a tag to your image, and you can use some of the preset tags here. You can choose different color, or if you're not happy with the colors, you can click on Show All and use some of the other tags available. So we can click out of that and move to the section which is called Where. As you already guessed it, the Where is a section where you choose the location where the file is going to be exported. Now we have two options here. You can click on this little drop-down box and choose one of your favorite locations. If you don't have the locations here, you click on this little arrow and that will bring you to your usual Explorer where you navigate to the location where you like to export the file. To come back to our previous view, we click on this little arrow again and we have the same window back. After we set the name of the file, we set the tags, and we also set the location where we're going to export the file, it's time to set the format of the export. Starting with the first option that is called Sharpen. You can click on these little arrows, and the options here are low, medium, and high. With the Sharpen drop-down box, you can choose whether you want to sharpen the exported file, and if so, by how much. Sharpening increases the details in the edges of the image and overcome some of the compression artifacts introduced by formats like JPEG. For me, I prefer to do the sharpening in the application. However, if you have a different habit, it's good for you to know that the option is here. So that was Sharpen, and now we're gonna move to the Resize. Let's click on our little arrows, and the options here are Original, Long Edge, Short Edge, and Dimensions. Now you can export your image at its original size. You can enter new dimensions for the image to fit its long side or short side, or you can create whole new dimensions. So original, you will export the image in the same size you imported in. Long edge, you can set the size of the long edge on your image, remembering that these are pixels. So when you leave it like this, the long edge of your image will have a 2500 pixels. The next option is short edge. Again, when you leave it like this, the short edge of your image will have a 2500 pixels. Finally, the option dimensions. You can completely adjust the dimension of your picture. So let's leave this on the original and move to the color space option. When we click on our little arrows, we have a sRGB, Adobe RGB, and Profoto RGB. The sRGB is the narrowest color space, but it's the most compatible with the web. Then we have the Adobe RGB. It's the most common color space used in computer graphics and many software applications. And finally, the Profoto RGB is the widest color space and supports the broadest range of colors. This is the only color space that can contain all the colors captured in a raw photo. So we leave it on sRGB and move to the final option that remains same for all the different export formats. And that's the actual drop-down box where you can change the format of your export. Luminar NEO comes with 6 different formats and we will cover all of them in a moment. When you change the format, you can see that depending on what format you use, the rest of the section changes. So now it's a good time to go through each of the 6 formats so we can understand them better. The first export format we're going to be looking at is JPEG. Now I'm sure you already know this format, however, let's just cover the basics. The JPEG stands for Joint Photography Expert Group. As a format, it's the most commonly used file format to display photos on the internet. Most digital cameras use JPEG because it provides excellent compression, And the maximum quality settings provide comparable image quality to much larger file formats like TIFF. It's good to know that occasionally the print industry will also use JPEGs. However, JPEG offer lossy compression, which means that some data is discarded during the compression. JPEGs shouldn't be used as an archival or production file format. You should generally only save JPEG file once, as resaving it continues to discard data and lower the image quality. When it comes to JPEG settings, here in Luminar NEO, we really only have two options. We can choose the color space, and I would suggest to stay at sRGB or Adobe RGB, and then we can choose the quality. By default, it says 100, which is the maximum quality, and you can go all the way down to 20. Generally, it's suggested when it comes to images to stay between 80 to 100. The export format number 2 is called PNG. So let's select it, and again, let's talk about it a little bit. PNG stands for Portable Network Graphics. Its format provides lossless compression, and it is increasingly common on internet as most web browsers support it. The PNG format was created to be a patent-free alternative to GIF. Its major advantage is that it allows for 24-bit images and some transparency. When you look at the PNG settings in Luminar NEO, you can see that we don't even have the quality here. The only thing you can change is the sRGB. And once again, with the PNGs, I would suggest you to stick with sRGB or Adobe RGB. The next export format on our list is a TIFF. When we select it on our list, you can see that we get a bunch of new settings we can set before we export the file. Talking about TIFF file, the TIFF stands for Tagged Image File Format, and it is one of the most common and flexible format available. It's widely used to exchange files between applications and computer platforms. It also has a long legacy of compatibility. Additionally, TIFF works with a depth of 8 bits or 16 bits per channel. So let's have a look at what are the different options we get when we exporting with TIFF format. Starting with the compression, let's click on our arrows, and what we have here is none, LZW and pack bits. Obviously, when you choose none, there will be no compression to your file at all. The pack bits compression is fast, widely supported, and it provides good results for images. LZW provides more compression than pack bits, but pack bits is the most common compression on all systems. Knowing that, I would always stick with the pack bits or none, depending on what export you're going for. Moving to the depth, we have a choice between 8 bits and 16 bits, but when to choose which one? It's good to know that the 16-bit TIFF retains all of the raw data to give you post-processing options until you finalize the results for the 8-bit version. So depending on your project, I would stick with the 16 bits for the moment. And finally, we have the resolution option. This is where you can choose how many pixels per inch you're going to keep on your image. Now, pixels per inch, also otherwise known as dots per inch, describe an image's effective resolution. An image that is 3000 pixels wide would make a 10-inch print at 300 pixels per inch. Some of the most common numbers for the resolution for the pixels per inch are 72, 240, 300 or 600. For the moment, to retain the highest quality, I would stick with the 300. So that was the slightly complicated TIFF format, and now it's time to look at the next option, and that's the JPEG-2000. So let's click on that. And once again, similarly to the JPEG, the only option here we have is the color space and quality. But first, let's talk about the JPEG itself. The JPEG-2000 format is an update released in the year 2000 from the Joint Photography Expert Group Committee. Its intent was to replace the original JPEG format. It uses a newer and more efficient image compression method. Once again, similarly to the JPEG, in a color space, I would stay within the sRGB or Adobe RGB, and when it comes to quality, once again 100 is the maximum quality and you can go as low as 20. However, when it comes to photography, I would stick between 70 and 100. The next export format is Photoshop. When we click on that, we have no option at all here other than color space. In the color space, you can go for the sRGB, Adobe RGB or ProPhoto RGB, as each one of them will work in Photoshop. The Photoshop file format, also known as PSD, is a common file format used in a computer graphic industry. Luminar NEO cannot write a layer file, but it can export a file that can be opened by Adobe Photoshop and other software packages that support the PSD format. And finally, the last option on our format list is the PDF, which I'm sure you also know. However, again, let's just quickly cover the basics. The PDF stands for Portable Document Format. It is a file format invented by Adobe that was intended to be an extension of PostScript. The PDF can be viewed on virtually every operating system and portable media player or phone. PDF is an open standard, which means that anyone can create applications that can read or write PDF without paying Adobe. This openness led to the quick adaptation of PDF, and it's used extensively online. Looking at the options, similarly to our Photoshop, we can also again only choose a color space, and this is where I would definitely suggest to try something like Adobe RGB or ProPhoto RGB. So now we understand all the different export formats available in Luminar NEO, and we should look at some of the exporting suggestions for tasks like high quality archive, sending your images for print, social media export, and web export. So starting with the high quality archive. This is a format I would use when I want to export my images and be able to edit them in the future. So let's start from the top. When it comes to color space, I would definitely go for the ProPhoto RGB, as I want to retain as much colors as possible. In a format, if you listen along, you want to go for the TIFF format. After that, in a compression, I would stick with the PAC bits. In the depth, definitely 16 bits. And when it comes to resolution, I would stay between 300 to 600 pixels per inch. So after that, I would click on yes, and I would have my images ready for future edits. The next exporting suggestion covers sending your images for print. When it comes to print shops and print companies, they sometimes prefer TIFF file and sometimes they prefer high quality JPEG file. So let me show you both versions. If your print company supports TIFF file, definitely go for that, and the settings would be like this. When it comes to color space, I would stick with Adobe RGB, as it is generally more compatible than the ProPhoto RGB. The file format, definitely TIFF. In a compression, I would actually go for none. In a depth, you need to go for 8 bits because there is only very limited amount of print shops that can accept 16 bits. And in a resolution, once again, I would stick between 300 and 600, but most cases 300 will be more than enough. Now moving to the situation when your print shop prefers the high quality JPEG file. So again, we would stick with the Adobe RGB on our color space. For the format, we choose JPEG. And then of course with the quality, we're gonna go as high as possible and stick to 100. The next exporting suggestion is focusing on social media. Now depending on what specific social media you're gonna be exporting for, you wanna find out if it's smart to resize your image based on long edge, short edge, or the overall dimension. You may also have to do some cropping, which you can do so in the edit module. After that, I would stick with JPEG format. However, in color space, I would go for sRGB just to keep the compatibility as good as possible. For the social media, I would stick with the quality on 100% to make sure that you're exporting and sharing the best quality of your image as possible. And finally, exporting for web. This is where you want to find a good relation between the size of the image and the quality of the image. For a web, you can of course export in PNG. However, let's stick with the option of using JPEG. So when you're exporting for web, this is the only case where I would go for the resize and click on original and actually use the long edge. For the web, I would stick with the 2500 pixels and then move to the color space. For the web, you can stick with sRGB or you can safely use the Adobe RGB if you want to. After that, the format, we say that we're gonna stick with JPEG, and to decrease the size a little bit, I would adjust my quality to 80. After that, I would export the image and see if the quality and size correspond with the project I am working on. And there you have it. So by now you should know everything about how to export from Luminar NEO. You should know that by right-clicking on the image and choosing export, you will get into the export window, and here you can adjust the name of your file, you can add tags to it, and you can also select the location where it's gonna be exported. In the section below, you can adjust the sharpening, you can resize the file, adjust the color space, choose one of the 6 different export formats, and do some additional editing and adjustment to it. Whenever you finish, you just click on save, and you're ready to use your file outside of the application. So now it's time to get your own Luminar NEO shortcut cheat sheet. All you have to do is to head to our website cleverphotographer.com/luminargift and get it right now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun and I hope you learned something new. Please don't forget to follow our channel and also check out our other videos covering Luminar NEO. For today, thank you very much for watching. My name was Jakub and I can't wait to see you in the next one.